She entered his office without even knocking, speaking in annoyance as she tried to confront him about his harsh tone and his orders as if she were one of his employees. "Why did you call me and speak to me like that? I was busy." "Laura, and I don't have time. I want to go home. I won't keep waiting for you for hours." 𝐏𝐴&𝐬𝐦𝐬𝐦𝐬𝐿. She rolled her eyes coldly and sat on the side chair while he bent down to the drawer beside him, pulling out the bracelet and placing it calmly in front of him, speaking in a cold tone while looking into her eyes. "My assistant stole it." 𝐏𝐴&𝐬𝐦𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐿. "I suspected that." "Laura, you suspected me, not him." 𝐏𝐴&𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬. "Same thing. The important part is that you both had it," she replied indifferently while checking her bracelet, and he just sighed silently, watching her. She tried to put it on by herself but struggled, then looked at him calmly. Can you help?" "Laura, no," he answered coldly, and she glared at him while still trying to close the bracelet herself. Suddenly, he stood up and sat on the side chair opposite her, taking her hand and trying to put the bracelet on. She looked at him in surprise and spoke. "You're doing it without being stubborn for once in your life?" "Laura, I'm not stubborn. I simply don't like the way you act, 𝐏𝐴&𝐬𝐽." He was so close to her that she could feel his breath on her hands. She looked at him closely and spoke in a teasing tone, feeling a rush of adrenaline. "And how do I act, Laura? You mean, apart from being entitled, spoiled, rude, annoying, and stubborn? 𝐏𝐴&𝐬𝐽?" His grip on her hand tightened, and the expression on his face was cold as he continued saying what came to his mind with his deep voice. "You get everything you want with a snap of your fingers. You expect anyone to say yes to you, including me, and you think the world revolves around you." Laura gasped at his words, feeling insulted and offended. She tried to pull her hand away, but he continued, his grip on her getting even tighter. "And you're selfish, narcissistic, and have no manners or respect for anyone," he said calmly, while she could only stare at him. She was enraged and tried to reply, but he silenced her, gripping her chin and forcing her to look at him. "You're also annoying and a constant bother, 𝐏𝐴&𝐬𝐽." Their faces were mere inches apart, and she could feel her heart beating fast as he continued to speak in a low, cold tone. "You're a distraction, a nuisance, and a pain in my ass, 𝐏𝐴&𝐬𝐽." She was about to retort, but his hand moved up to her neck, his grip tightening and making her gasp, feeling her heart race more as he continued to look into her eyes. "You're stubborn, and you always have to argue with me or prove me wrong, and you're always defying me. It's driving me insane, 𝐏𝐴&𝐬𝐽." She tried to speak and protest, but his grip around her neck made her gasp for air, his deep voice and cold expression making her shiver. "And you have no sense of personal space. You invade my personal space, get way too close to me, 𝐏𝐴&𝐬𝐽." He was driving in silence, his eyes fixed on the road, while she sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window. The tension between them was palpable, the air thick and uncomfortable. Finally, she broke the silence. "Why are you taking me home, Laura?" He didn't reply immediately, keeping his gaze fixed on the road and his expression cold as ever. After a long pause, he finally answered in a cold, emotionless tone. "Because it's late. I don't want you getting into trouble, 𝐏𝐴&𝐬𝐽." Laura rolled her eyes, feeling annoyed at his response. She turned to him, crossing her arms over her chest and speaking in a defiant tone. "I can take care of myself, you know." He didn't look at her, but she could see his grip tighten on the wheel. He replied in a cold tone, his eyes on the road. "Clearly, you can't. You're always putting yourself in risky situations." Laura frowned, feeling insulted. She felt like he was treating her like a child. She retorted with a hint of defiance in her voice. "I can handle myself just fine. I don't need you to take care of me." He remained silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the road. Finally he spoke, his voice cold yet firm. "You're too reckless, and I don't trust you to make good decisions." Laura was getting more annoyed, feeling like he was talking down to her. She replied, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, so you think you know better than me? Is that it?" He didn't answer immediately, his expression still cold and distant. Finally he replied, his tone firm and matter-of-fact. "I do. I'm older and have more experience. I know better." Laura bit her lip, feeling frustrated. She couldn't believe he was actually saying these things. With a hint of defiance, she challenged him. "And what makes you think that?" This time he turned to look at her, his gaze intense and his expression still serious. "Because I've seen you make mistakes. I've seen how careless you can be. I've had to pull you out of trouble more times than I can count." Laura couldn't argue with that. She knew he had a point, but she didn't want to admit it. She looked away, feeling a mix of anger and embarrassment. "You think you're so perfect, don't you?" Laura snapped back, her voice sharp and defensive. He didn't seem affected by her sharp reply. His expression remained stoic. He kept his focus on the road and replied in a calm voice, "I'm not perfect, but I make better decisions than you do." She clenched her fists, feeling like he was being condescending. "And I suppose you're never wrong either," she retorted. He shook his head, his expression still firm and composed. "No one's perfect. I make mistakes too, but I learn from them. You, on the other hand, seem to repeat the same mistakes over and over again." She hated how he was right, and she hated how he could be so calm and collected while she was getting more and more irritated. She tried to argue back, but he interrupted her before she could speak. "You're careless, you're reckless, and you're stubborn. That's a dangerous combination, and it's gonna get you into trouble one day." In a soft and suggestive voice, "Let's dance instead." As they walked to the middle of the crowded dance floor, she slowly pressed her body sensually against his, keeping up the illusion. He put his hand on her hips, pulling her close. As she wrapped her arms around his neck, they moved to the rhythm of the music. While they dance, Jack leans in and whispers in her ear, his hot breath on her skin. "You look beautiful tonight, Laura. I can barely keep my eyes off you." His hands roam over her body, touching her sides and her hips. Laura forces her eyes to sparkle and respond with a fake smile. "And you're quite handsome yourself, darling," she purrs, moving closer to him. Her hands grip his shoulders, and her body brushes against his as they dance. After bidding her time and dancing with Jack, she discreetly excused herself to the garden. Laura finally found herself alone, taking a deep breath and relishing the moment of peace. She strolled through the garden, taking in the fresh air and the tranquil surroundings. The noise of the club was drowned out, and she felt a sense of liberation away from the crowded and loud atmosphere inside. She found a secluded bench tucked away in a corner, surrounded by lush greenery. She sat down, closing her eyes briefly and savoring the momentary solitude. The cool breeze washed over her, and the tension in her shoulders began to ease. For a few minutes, she allowed herself to just be there, undisturbed and at peace. It was a rare moment of tranquility in her usually hectic life, a brief escape from the world, where she could gather her thoughts and regain her composure. However, as the respite was short-lived, she noticed footsteps approaching. Opening her eyes, she saw a familiar figure approaching. Jungkook, her boss, appeared at the end of the path, his eyes scanning the garden until they landed on her. Of course he would find her here. He always seemed to have a knack for appearing unannounced and uninvited. She quickly composed herself, sitting up straight and trying to appear calm. Jungkook approached her, his steps measured and his expression stoic. He came to stand a few feet away from her, his eyes studying her. She waited for him to speak, her own gaze averted, not wanting to engage in conversation with him. But he remained silent, his gaze still on her, as if silently demanding her attention. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke, his deep voice breaking the silence. What are you doing here alone, Jungkook? Laura rolled her eyes, his question irritating her. She replied with sarcasm, her voice dripping with annoyance. What does it look like, genius? I'm enjoying some peace and quiet, something you seem to have no understanding of. He didn't seem fazed by her response, his expression remaining stoic. He simply tilted his head, a slight smirk playing on his lips. No need to be condescending, princess. I just thought I'd check on you. Wouldn't want you getting into trouble again. She bristled at his words, her irritation growing. I can take care of myself, you know. I don't need you to babysit me all the time. He chuckled softly, his gaze still fixed on her. You've proven otherwise, princess. You have a talent for getting into trouble, and someone has to keep an eye on you. She clenched her fists, her frustration mounting. I'm not a damsel in distress, and I don't need your constant supervision. I'm capable of making my own decisions. He leaned against a nearby tree, his tone nonchalant. Oh, really? Your track record says otherwise. Remember the incident at the press conference? Or when you nearly burned down my office? Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment at the reminders of her past missteps. She retorted defensively. Those were accidents, and they were minor incidents, nothing major. He raised an eyebrow, his smirk growing. Minor incidents? You caused a media frenzy at the press conference and almost set my office on fire. And that's not mentioning the endless list of other mishaps. Princess, you're a walking disaster waiting to happen. She huffed, her irritation reaching its peak. I don't need your reminders, okay? I'm perfectly capable of handling myself. And stop calling me princess. It's condescending. He pushed himself away from the tree, taking a few steps closer to her. He replied with a smirk, enjoying her irritation. Oh, but princess suits you so well. It captures your brattiness and your entitled attitude perfectly. Her eyes flashed with anger, her patience wearing thin. I am not a brat, nor am I entitled. I just know what I want, and I'm not afraid to go after it. Unlike you, who seems to have a stick up his ass all the time. He chuckled, seemingly amused by her feisty demeanor. Oh, princess has some bite, I'll admit that. But let's not delude ourselves. You're certainly entitled, and your stubbornness is nothing short of legendary. She stood up, facing him with her arms crossed. Oh, please, like you're one to talk about stubbornness. You're the most stubborn, hard-headed, and impossible person I've ever met. He chuckled softly, enjoying the banter. Is that so? Well, maybe you bring it out in me, princess. You have this talent for getting under my skin and making me want to argue with you. It's quite impressive, really. She rolled her eyes, refusing to back down. I don't try to get under your skin. You're just too easy to rile up. I mean, come on, it's not hard to annoy someone so uptight and rigid. He took another step closer, reducing the distance between them. And you, princess, are just as uptight and rigid. In fact, I'd say you have a stick up your ass, too. We're quite a pair, aren't we? She huffed, trying to remain composed even though he was now standing disturbingly close. I'm not uptight. I just have standards and expectations, something you seem to lack. He smirked, his gaze roaming over her features. Oh, is that so? And what standards would those be? Being rude, impulsive, and argumentative? Because you've got those down flawlessly. She clenched her fists, her irritation flaring once again. And you're any better? You're bossy, controlling, and overbearing. You have no sense of boundaries, and you treat me like a child. He raised an eyebrow, his expression still annoyingly nonchalant. Oh, princess, I treat you like a child because you act like one. You need someone to keep you in check, that's all. And as for boundaries, you don't understand the concept of personal space. You always invade mine. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. She hated how he always managed to get under her skin. And whose fault is that? You're the one who insists on having me by your side at all times, following your every command. You have a weird obsession with me. It's creepy. He chuckled, his eyes glinting with amusement. Obsession? Hardly. I just prefer to keep a watchful eye on you, princess. It's a matter of survival, really. You're like a ticking time bomb, waiting to cause chaos wherever you go. She rolled her eyes again, growing increasingly frustrated. I am not a ticking time bomb, you overdramatic prick. You just can't stand the fact that I can handle myself without you breathing down my neck every minute. His expression grew serious for a moment, his tone becoming stern. Oh, really? And how have you managed to handle yourself thus far, princess? Because it seems to me that every time I'm not around, you find trouble. And I'm the one who has to clean up the messes you leave behind. She bristled at his word, her voice filled with defiance. I don't need you to clean up after me. I'm perfectly capable of handling my own messes. I just don't need you constantly nagging me and breathing down my neck. You really need to learn how to give people space. He took a step closer, his eyes locked on hers. And you need to learn how to behave yourself. You're like a wild horse that needs to be tamed. Someone needs to keep you in check, princess. Otherwise, you'll run amok, causing more trouble than necessary. Her heart raced as he stood so much closer, their proximity sending waves of mixed feelings through her. I'm not a horse to be tamed, damn it. And I don't need you to keep me in check. I can take care of myself. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a low tone, almost a whisper. Oh, princess, you're wrong. You do need me to keep you in check. You need someone to keep you grounded, to rein in your impulses and your reckless behavior. You need someone to remind you to think before you act. And whether you like it or not, I'm the one who's been doing that. She felt a shiver run down her spine, a mix of irritation and something else, her frustration growing. You're infuriating, you know that? You think you know me so well that you can just say stuff like that and expect me to just agree? I'm not some brainless puppet, and I don't need you to control me.